Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman podcast, where I truly enjoy sitting down with people to have go-in conversations so that they can get their story out, because I believe that three things happens, ladies and gentlemen. Three things happen when people share their story. One, we learn from them. We learn from their story. Two, we are inspired by their stories. And three, we connect with them. And I believe that when we connect with people, community happens. And I love to say this, ladies and gentlemen. I love to say this. Community wins. And today, I got my man, Norman Markland, on the video Skype, because you know things are crazy right now, so it's not very much person to person, and so we're doing the best we can. And so I am so thrilled to have my man with me today. Norman, how you doing today?
And I'm good, man. Thanks for.
Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman podcast, where I have go-in conversations with fabulous people so I can get their story out there. And the reason I want to get their story out there is because I believe three things happen when people share their story. One, we learn from them. Two, we are inspired. And three, we connect. And I believe that when we connect, we form community, and I believe that community wins. And today, I got my man, Matt Stansberry. Matt, thank you so much for taking time to join me today for the podcast. Like I said, I know someone who knows you, Denver Duncan, and this goes back. I think at one time he actually did some work for you. How many years was that ago? How many years ago was that?
Oh man, probably 3.
Oh, was that just 3? It feels like it was so. I guess it was right before he went to D.C., huh?
Well, if you add coronavirus in there, then it feels like, it would have felt like long. It made it feel longer ago.
Yeah, so Denver Duncan, and we have some other mutual friends, and then Hannah Schmidt has the co-working space, and your workspace is right next to her, and then I think when you were at Citizens at Vault 405. I was listening to your podcast. I know you were doing a podcast at that time. And then following you on Instagram. And that's kind of how I just kind of form my questions that I love to ask you and just kind of have a conversation with you. But let me just start off kind of like, what were you like as a kid and through high school? What were you like then?
Oh, man. So I always had friends, but, and I was always kind of social with everybody, but I didn't have it took me a while to find my group. So when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time. It sounds sad, but it's not. I mean, I actually enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time working on art and music, a lot by myself. So that was my passion. So a lot of people don't know this about me because they see all the music stuff I've done, kind of. But when I was younger, I was really probably all the way through high school. I was more known as an artist, like a painter and drawer, and art. Did art, and that was my passion. And did a lot of stuff with that, and that was a talent I've, a God-given talent that I had. That I learned pretty early. I didn't know I had any music talent. Probably around second grade or so, started doing a lot of stuff with art and would do art competitions and got art scholarship for college and stuff like that. But it's something that a lot of people don't know. So I spent a ton of time drawing, and I liked a lot of realism stuff. So looking at stuff and how do I make this look real, and that kind of thing. So did that a lot. And then when I got older, that started transferring over to music. So I spent a ton of time with just mostly kind of self-taught kind of style. And I say self-taught. Nobody's really self-taught. We're learning from other people. It's just through, different avenues. So I would, my mom would go to the grocery store. And when she'd go to the grocery store, I would sit down and read the Guitar World magazine. And I would go to the part where they teach you songs, and I'd sit and try to memorize them because I didn't have the money to buy the magazine. Yeah. So I'd sit and just go okay, and I would do the song in my head till I got home, and I'd grab the guitar and be like, all right, I figured this out, And so I always like to work on craft, whether it's music or art. But those were the two big things. And the same thing with basketball. I played tons of basketball, but that's mostly as a kid. I remember. I mean, I played and did stuff, but I spent a lot of time creating and trying to improve on stuff. I just spent a lot of time on that. Yeah.
How did you get connected with basketball? Was that just something your parents kind of pushed you into, or did you just kind of gravitate to it naturally?
90s kid, born in the 80s, but 90s kind of during those core years. I mean, that's when like Jordan was playing and stuff, you know. So when I was in middle school, so that it was just very inspirational time, I think, for basketball.
Yeah.
But my brother was real into it. He's older than me, and so he kind of got me into it. And then I'm about 6'4", so like I was always one of the tallest kids in school, and so like I didn't actually start playing didn't play any leagues at all till about 7th or 8th grade, you know. And so I was kind of behind, but I was able to catch up pretty fast and play, and you know, was never gonna really play like college or and like no stretch to play NBA. But in my mind, at one point, you know, 8th grade, I thought I was going to go pro.
We all do at some point, right? We all think we're going to go to that next level and be a superstar.
Me and everybody, right?
Yeah.
Me and everybody.
Buy your mom a house, buy your parents a car. You know, we all have those kind of dreams, which I think that kind of helps move kids forward. Like in some cases, you know, like some kids need that to think, to have those type of dreams. And so now as an artist, so my daughter's an artist, did you have challenges focusing class because all you want to do is draw? Like, or were you not like that? Or was that you?
Totally like that. So like when I got into middle school, I'd actually like, this is the entrepreneurial side of me, but people would ask me to draw pictures for them. So I started charging. So during class, I'd make like $10 drawing somebody a picture. So I started doing that most of the time. Like somebody'd be like, oh, here's $10. We draw me this class period. I was like, sure. Sure, I'll make some cool drawing and do that and stuff. So I did a ton of that. Also went through a whole class clown period.
Okay.
That whole deal, just kind of disruptive. And, you know, if I went back, I wouldn't be like that at all now. I mean, I really wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just not, that's kind of, I've grown out of all that. But yeah, when you say that's funny, yeah, I was pretty distracted with drawing during class or making people laugh.
Every parent-teacher conference we go to is like, Nia just won't focus, and then they'll walk over there to her paper, and then she'll have all sorts of fancy drawings on it and things like that. And so it's been really a challenge of saying I don't want to disrupt that. I want her to be able to do that and all that, and we'll figure school out because I don't want that to be the path that she's going to go on. And I'm trying to get her to learn math. You know, like I think she knows the basics in that. And so, not that I don't like school, but I'm for people moving forward in things that they're best gifted at. And so if art's going to be our thing.
We align on that. Yeah.
We align on that. If art's going to be our thing, let's let her draw like as much as she can because that's the only way she's going to get better. And so the funny thing is you telling that story about how you as a child and a student, one of the questions I was going to ask you is which came first, design or music? Because I know like right now you have a band and then you have a design shop, you know, essentially.
Yep.
And so design came first for you, I guess.
Yeah, well, I would say art did. Art, like okay. Design, actually like true design more like in its form. I didn't really get into it till about college time period. My experience with design before that would have been very, very accidental, and I would have been kind of a hybrid between design and traditional art, which was doing like album packaging. So like I had a band in 8th grade, and we made a tape, and so like I made all the album package, but I did it all artistically. I did it all by hand, so I'd like type stuff out, cut it out. Then I went to like at the time Kinko's, and I did all the dimension stuff, and I'd print them off, and then I would hand fold them and like put them into the cassettes and stuff. So like that's kind of design. But it's like kind of clunky and old school, so like trying to figure it out. So I started dabbling with design back then, but I really didn't formally actually like get into design till college.
Okay. So
and then music I got into around middle school too. So middle school was a turning point for me. Like that's where I found music. That's when I first dabbled in design. But previous to that, it was all art. Yeah.
Now, in your profile for Nominee, am I saying that correct? For Nominee,
yeah, Nominee.
You have work hard, tell stories, create, and stay curious. Stay curious, right? What's the best way to tell stories? As a designer, as a musician, they're both pretty big on storytelling. Like, what is that like for you? How do you approach it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, like, our agency is really, we think of ourselves and talk about ourselves as really a brand development agency. So, like, early on, when people don't know how to articulate their story, they have a good idea. a lot of times the tendency is to be like, let's design our way out of that. Like, let's make a cool logo and let's start making a cool website and let's do all those things. We're more like, hold it. Let's make sure we really get a message that's going to resonate. So we do a pretty robust strategy process for that, like to get that really dialed in so that we're not just like if somebody wants to get a quick idea, we're not the place to come to. Like, we're not just going to like throw out a bunch of like willy-nilly ideas quickly. It's more of like, let's stop, let's slow down, let's be strategic. Let's do interviews. Let's find what that story is and how we want to talk about it. So I look at it as like, to tell a story well, I think you got to know what you want to say and how you want to say it, you know, because it's always there. And so our job isn't to like create the story. I think that can be sometimes misleading because we do see ourselves as storytellers. We're not telling our story half the time. Most of the time we're telling somebody else's story.
Yeah.
And it's all there. So like our job, when a client gets happy, typically we're just like, you're just seeing a really nicely thoughtful, crafted version of yourself. Like, this is what you already believed. This is what you already were all about. You may have just not been able to articulate it or clarify it right. So I think good storytelling is knowing what you want to say, how you want to say it, and clearly knowing how you're going to do. You know, if you can clearly do that, that's good storytelling, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everybody has a story, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I believe that. So you said you do some interviewing. What are some key questions that you've learned to ask to start helping somebody, like, you already have the story in you, let's just get it out? What are some key questions that you've learned to ask people when you go through the strategic?
I haven't actually thought about that because it's kind of, we have some that we'll ask, but it's kind of unique every time.
Yeah.
Because every brand we work with is unique. And it really is. And so half the time we'll script questions and then go off script because we're just following the muse. You know, they'll start going down a path and we're like, we kind of just shove our notes to the side and be like, let's just go over here. You know, that feels like a good place to go.
Yeah. That's like, nowhere near where we thought we were going, but yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So to answer your question, probably the best way to maybe answer a question or ask a good question for us is just by listening to what's being said and ask the next question that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's really the only way I could probably answer that. Because I don't really have like the canned $1 million question down.
For sure. You know, and I love that honesty because I feel like most people don't. And that's reason I call this a conversation more so than anything else, because I just want to talk like we're sitting down at the coffee shop, and then it'll start coming. Like if I set up questions and all that, I mean, I have questions. I've kind of looked at some stuff to kind of guide me, but I just want to be able to have a natural conversation with people, because from that, your story is going to be told, right? And there's some key things that I like to look at and kind of dive into. I love entrepreneurship. So you're an entrepreneur, you're an artist. I'm not an artist, but I'm fascinated by artists and how you think and the way you approach things. And so, no. So I like that. I love that actually. That's the way you kind of approach that. It's just kind of let it start happening naturally, because it'll come out of people. So, and so with that, like where did Nominee come from? What made you start it?
Before I answer that, I'll just say this is why I'm on the podcast. Like as you're talking, there's so many things that we align with that we never even have these conversations to know it. But maybe we just could feel it, the energy. I mean, everything you're saying, I'm like, man, you're just like, we're just thinking exactly the same way.
Yeah, no, but that's when I follow people and I watch and I kind of get a feel for them, and I just love to sit down with people and just have interesting, just have conversations with people. Go in, and I don't know if you've ever heard me define it or not, but go in is about what are those right things you need to be consistent in to achieve the wins you want for your life, to live out your greatest story. And so through this conversation, I hope that people can kind of hear some of the right things that you're consistent in, or things you're doing in your life to achieve the things that you've been able to do. And from that, other people can take some of that and adopt it, and then kind of redefine it for themselves. And hopefully they go win and live out the greatest story that they can possibly live out. So.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Well, that's what we're all trying to do, I think. That's great. I love it. So to answer your question about Nominee, so when I got out of college, I immediately started working for an agency. It was more PR focused, but I was the second hire over there. So I was early on. There's only 3 of us. Grew pretty fast from there. By the time I left, there was already probably close to 30 people at that agency. And I ended up I think part of it, like, I don't know if it would have been that way if I came in later, but being early on, I was able to start building a team. So I ended up being the creative director and build a team over there. And so it was a tricky situation to leave because I'm part of the ground floor and helping lead a team. But ultimately, I think what it came down to is I just had a vision for something else I wanted to do. And my job there was to serve that CEO's vision of what they wanted to do. And I just did not feel like it was appropriate to be disruptive or try to shift it to my vision. But that was a really tough time for me to figure out, like, how do I do this knowing that, like, I'm building a team up, they trust me, and to be like the leader of that team saying I'm going to go do something else. So that was kind of awkward, but I'm glad I was able to navigate that, and still have good relationships with those people. And I think people can tell where your heart's at, but anyway, I left because I wanted to be able to focus more on music in general. And so when I first started Nominee, I was adjuncting at ACM, the music school in Bricktown. So I was adjunct professor there for a little while. I was doing that. And then I was, this is before, when I left, I hadn't even had the Romance, which is this band I've had for, 10-piece band I've had for 8 years now. So this is 2010 when I start Nominee. So it's prior to all this. At the time, I had 2 daughters. We were struggling financially, and it was just a very transitional time. And I actually felt like, what do we have to lose? But I feel like there's a lot to gain, was where I landed. Prayed a lot about it and stuff like that. So decided to take this risk. So when I started, I'm going around in circles, so I apologize.
No, it's a conversation. This is where conversations work. Yeah, I love it. Just take your time. Take your time.
But so when I started Nominee, like, the vision was to serve the music industry with creative services, was really the niche. So when I first started working a lot with record labels. Didn't really do much in the community. Did some with some artists, a little bit, but a lot of it was on the coast and stuff like that. So really the niche was, more Midwest, Southwest type position where we could, I could charge less and be fast, and those kind of be nimble, and so do a lot of creative work. So it was all over the place. It'd be album artwork, it'd be photo shoots. Some of it was full brand development for a band, website development, and I was doing almost all of it by myself early on. Even including the web work, which is crazy now if that I even did website for so long, because I'm not now. I would totally be the last guy you'd want to hire to do me personally to do a website.
Yeah,
my team's great at it, but I not me. So did all that stuff for a while, and then it was funny, like, things would kind of like creep out of that. So I did a lot. I got to work with, and it was cool because I got to work with some of my heroes and stuff. So we'd do projects for, like, I was doing projects for Radiohead and Peter Gabriel, and some early on with, like, Alabama Shakes, and some of these cool stories that I got to have out of that, and some relationships I got to have. But what was fun was we was working with these bands. I ended up getting a call from I got a call from a manager I'd never worked with before, and it was a music manager. He said, I have an artist who wants to talk to you. I got your name through this record label, and yada, yada, and one connection to another. I was like, I'm just going to have them call you. And I was like, okay. And I was like, who's this? And it was like, it's going to be Sean from Boyz II Men. And I was like,
what?
Okay. Yeah, have him call. So he calls. I think it's going to be like a music project. And he's like, man, I've got this nonprofit project I want, need help with. And so I just saw it as an opportunity. And Sean's an awesome guy. Amazing person beyond. And so he wanted to do this nonprofit for autism because one of his twin sons is on the spectrum, and he just realized, he thought, hey, here we are with financial resources, and this is really hard to take care of my son. Think about people that some of these moms that are single, they have a child that is autistic, and the challenges that come along with that, and no resources. And he just thought, we want to be able to raise money and help these kids. So I was like, I'm in. I want to help on this project. It's not music, but it's music related. So at that time period, that's when, like, the music industry stuff started. We started morphing out of that into, like, other avenues and other things. And to this date, we still do music projects from time to time, but we're really across industries. And we've really, instead of being broadly creative services, we really are really niche brand we practice more of that brand expertise angle. But anyway, just kind of giving a little story of like where we started and kind of how it transitioned over time into kind of where we are now.
How did you go about getting your first client? Like, because were you in Oklahoma?
The whole time. Yeah.
So how did you go out and venture out and start getting clients on the East Coast? Like how did you do that?
Yeah. So it snowballed out of one relationship, and it's a local guy by the name of Graham Colton. So if you know Graham, he was I say local guy, he's from here, but he had a national recording career. And it was pretty active, I'd say, from like, and I may be wrong on these dates, but let's call it 2003 to 2009, like super active during that time period. I think he's still done more since then, but that was like his very active. And he runs the talent buying and the music side of the Jones Assembly now is what his main project is. But we actually had like played a battle of the bands together years ago. We almost started a band together, but we barely knew each other. And in 2009, we got reconnected. And I ended up helping him out with his music projects. And so his manager ended up tying me to some projects. And from there, it just sort of like somebody would find the website and different things. But it all started, I tell Graham now, it started with Graham, started the whole thing and his connections. And then it just from one person went to two and two went to three. And I think as long as I checked the boxes, which at the time what success looked like, good work, affordable, fast, friendly, will work with you. And another thing I probably should have mentioned first is like understands the music industry. You're not going to explain the music industry to this guy. He's not just a random designer that it's like I knew how to get stuff. So the other thing is there was a service at the time called Topspin. And so Topspin was an e-commerce solution for musicians and bands and record labels. And there was a really high demand for people that could integrate that into websites. Like, how do you do that? The purchase of music with them and the integration of online stores and ticket sales is a really robust platform. Some of the guys from Yahoo Music started it. And so we were able to partner with Topspin and became featured on their website. And so, but it was just like constantly just, that was my hustle days. That was like truly, truly hustle. And just, I'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do a good job. Also there'd be times I worked till like 5 a.m. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. So you were married during that time too, because you've been married, 15 years?
Yep.
Yeah. In the fall, I guess y'all celebrated 15 in September, huh? That's cool. Yeah. So you were married during that time and doing these crazy hours and things like that. And did y'all have kids at that time too?
Yeah.
How are you balancing all that? Like
2 kids. I've had, let's see, my youngest is almost 8. So during all that time, we had at least 1 or 2, and then in some cases 3. Man, my like, it's funny. So every now and then somebody will ask me about marriage advice because they see what I'm able to do with my time. And I think I'm an anomaly though, because my wife, we have a great relationship, but she's like pretty hardcore introverted, and it kind of surprises people because she's a photographer and all these things, and she's really talented and loves people and is just great with people, but she likes a lot of her time. And so and I'm kind of the same way, and it sounds crazy, but we like our space. So a lot of nights, we'll do our thing with the girls and something, but whereas I see a lot of couples will sit down and watch a movie together as a normal, that's rare for us. And I know that sounds crazy. So I try not to give a lot of marriage advice because we have our own formula, and I don't think it works for. Yeah. I wouldn't, in good faith, wouldn't tell people to do half the stuff we do. I would be like, please don't do that. Your wife will kick you out, have you sleeping on the couch.
So my wife, I'm crazy too. I do a lot of stuff and always working and doing stuff. And my wife is the same way. She's great with people. People love her. Just love her to death. But she's right now, this quarantine stuff, she's like, yes, let's stay at home for the rest of our lives, So and I think for me too, when people ask me about that, I'm like, it just kind of really depends on who you marry, what their personalities are like. Yeah, and so it just kind of all depends. But I taught relationship classes for at least 13 years. And so it's always about educating people. And part of that education is letting people understand, who you are and who she is. You got to understand. Yeah. You got to understand that and be able to flow in that. And so you've been blessed to marry with somebody who gets you, and lets you be you. So.
Yeah.
No, that is a win, man. For sure,
Yes,
for sure.
I have a cool wife, and then and like, but that is a challenge. Like, the right amount of time that I need to spend with my family and stuff too. And so, that's just real talk. I mean, they would say that's a challenge that from not every day or consistently but that would be something they would say is like, hey, I think we need a little more time with dad sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something we battle with sometimes and work on. But we, right now we're seeing each other a lot.
Yeah. Well, I was telling somebody, I was like, well, thank God I really do like my wife, because we were locked in the room for 3 weeks together, because of quarantine. And so in our bedroom. And so, but we really like each other, and so it was cool.
Good.
Like, at least she acts like she really likes me, so I think she does. So, yeah, I really like her, so I was good. I wasn't somebody getting on my nerves or annoying or anything like. But I'm not easily annoyed, so I can deal with just about most people. So, 10 years, right? 2010, I guess you said you started Nominee.
This summer.
This summer's. Tell me, what would be somebody's listening right now? They'd be like, man, 10 years. What would be some tips, tricks? What are some things that you would suggest to them to make it 10 years?
And that's tough because my mind's kind of thinking of different answers to that.
Oh, give it all.
I want
whatever you want to share.
What's that?
You give whatever you're thinking.
So like part of it, I guess when I started it, I guess it's with anything that I do. If I really believe in it, I fight for it, even when other people don't see it. I think that's the part. If you see the vision clearly, and it kind of goes back to some of that earlier stuff we talked about, it's like you got to know what you want to do, why you're doing it, and how you're going to do it. If you kind of got that stuff figured out and you believe in it, and you don't feel, and your soul will tell you when you're doing the wrong thing. I think you'll feel kind of aimless, and if people listen to that and they get on the right path, I think once you're on the right path, I fight for it. Like, this whole COVID thing happens, and the first thing I'm thinking is like, I mean, we're to a point right now. We may not be in this position, but I'm fighting to keep the team together. We've been very blessed and not had to do any layoffs or anything like that. But that's kind of fitting for our organization and my personal take on things. I'm going to fight for it. My first thing isn't going to be hit the ejector button. My first choice. That's the last choice. And in fact, that's not even a choice, to be honest. Like, I'm going down with the ship if it's going down. So I don't know. That's probably that kind of like fighter desire to win, and like really that piece. Like, I'm competitive, and not necessarily like wanting to beat other people. I'm just competitive. Like, I want to win. I want my clients to win. I want people around. And so it's a great topic for what we're doing with what you do, and not to try to steal that away from you because that's your thing. But like, I like to fight for things. So that's probably, as I'm thinking it out, that's probably the reason why we've made it 10 years, because there's been multiple times where we almost failed financially, several times throughout history. And so people don't always see that with successful stuff. I see it a ton. Like, we see organizations and people will be like, man, that organization's awesome. And in my mind, I'm like, we've worked with them. They're barely making it. You just don't know that, Yeah. But they stick to it and they work at it, and eventually, but I just, and this is just me, and I don't know if this is other people, success for me has never come easy. Like, I think sometimes it's easy to romanticize people's lives. You see it on Instagram, or you'll see all this good posts, because I'm not going to post all the dirty laundry for you to see, It's just, if we all did that, people would be like, too much, but just being real, like, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really had everything figured out, and it's definitely been a challenge. And every day I feel like you have to be in it, and you have to like put it all out there and be vulnerable and do those things that are pretty far out of like a lot of people's comfort zone, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of it. I just don't take no easy, and I'm like, it's like, give me a challenge and we're gonna go for it.
Yeah. No, I definitely would say that would be true. And I mean, I grew up with a father who's an entrepreneur, and it has not been easy. And but it's the best life. Like, to be an entrepreneur and have your own thing is is great, the flexibility, but in that you definitely gonna work hard for it, and it won't always be easy. And the cool thing, my wife and I talk about this all the time. Entrepreneur, it's great how you can see an entrepreneur and be like, man, they got it all together. But there's been so many, I almost lost everything in their stories, but they know how to make that $10 in 1 hour in class by selling paintings. Like they're gonna figure it out, right? like, oh no, we're gonna garner up some business somehow.
That's funny.
Yeah. So with your wife being a photographer, do y'all ever cross paths? Does she ever do any work for you in your company or no?
We used to. So there was a point, and I think part of it, she's really stayed in her lane and served the same audience for her. Really, she's been doing it for a long time. She started doing it way back, like 2003. She started doing first kind of projects. She's mostly her client base has mostly been families.
Okay.
And so she doesn't do as much commercial work. However, there was a point where let's see how long it was. So from 2000 and probably around 2012 into 2012. So let's say 2013 to, I don't know, probably like 3 or 4 years in there where we shared space. And so we used her photo space some for photo shoots that we would do, like commercial stuff that she didn't really want to do. And then some of that she did for us. And so, but she would bring in it was kind of funny because we were like working and having like meetings, and then she'd have like a baby crying in the back because she's doing like a newborn photo shoot. It's pretty fun. But yeah, so we did that whole thing. We had like a big open house there, and this was in downtown Edmond when we were there, and we were there for 2013 to 2018. So we're there 5 years.
Okay.
And
was that the
so
vault?
Most of that, it wasn't vault. It was like a block down.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, so we did our podcast out of vault, but our office was just like a block down.
Cool.
So I'd walk down and do it out of vault. But anyway, yeah, so we had some crossover. And so we did, she did a lot of photo shoots for like Organic Squeeze, if you've ever been there.
Mm-hmm.
She did some I think she did some for Cool Greens.
Okay.
Some of these restaurants that we did. In different projects that we'd bring her into. And it just finally was just sort of that's not really what she exactly wanted to do and couldn't do it the way she wanted to. And commercial work's pretty demanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so that could cause a little bit of tension between us. And so we were like,
nah.
You do her, you do you. And we were growing. So we ended up, so she was like, I'll do my own thing. So she got our own studio space in a different location. And we kind of go, and then that actually made it better. We just kind of separated because it was pretty integrated for a few years. And it was great. We were happy, but it wasn't sustainable. And our projects were getting tougher and clients were and she was just like, I don't want that. I like my lane, so anyway.
How has the move been for you?
We've loved it, so we're in Film Row now.
Yeah.
Downtown. And, man, I love it down there. So we can walk over to like Jones Assembly, walk over to Stitch, Joey's Pizzeria is right there. We're right over by, the Civic Center. And we're just within walking distance from Devon Tower.
Mm-hmm.
We're just on that west side. So it's a little quieter in a good way. There's activity and it's growing, but it's easy for us to park.
Yeah.
Easy for us to walk around down there. Most of our team lives in Oklahoma City and not Edmond. And so it's really worked out. I mean, we're obviously not there right now. But I think the teams has enjoyed being downtown where kind of more the hustle and bustle is. Yeah.
How is this, I guess we got to ask, how's this COVID-19 thing impacting you?
So, I mean, interesting. I have like the pros and cons to it. So like the cons, it hit me pretty early, like the whole, kind of freaked out. And just like, whoa. And I wasn't really pleasant to be around my family, like the first couple days. And so I'm kind of glad I got that out of my system because as time goes on, I've actually relaxed more and more.
Yeah.
And I really do. I feel totally at peace with it right now. I don't feel at peace about people losing their lives and people getting sick, but I mean, just feel at peace that it's out of my control.
Yeah.
And I just can do what I can do and try to serve people. And so, we've offered some solutions for some groups that are doing things to make a positive impact on the community. There's some people we're helping out for free. There's people that we're helping out financially that still could use our services. So we've done a lot of pivoting on stuff like that to try to help people during this time. And then at home, like we talked about some of this stuff earlier, but like I have a home office that, that I'm in now. We added this on like a couple years ago, and I'm so glad that we did, because I actually like can work totally from home, and it was seamless. A lot of things we did, not even knowingly, like ended up being to our advantage when this all happened in terms of our daily like lifestyle and stuff like that. So like I'm all good there. Like, and I just feel like no matter how bad this thing gets, like there's just no reason to freak out. There just really isn't. The only thing to do is like be proactive to help. And I did kind of freak out early on, and I did it quietly. I didn't do it publicly. Yeah. But just kind of really stressed it. It was really getting to me. But anyway, like I said, I'm out of my system. I really do feel at peace. I just, want to try to do the next right thing. For sure. And not just, I want to be proactive and not just sit around. Yeah. And so we're busy doing tons of stuff. We actually this afternoon, helped launch the Oklahoma Standard with the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum. So they launched that. And that's promoting acts of service, honor, and kindness, which was really, really good. So it's super relevant right now. And so the mayor and Sam Presti and a few others, and Kerry Watkins and Bob Ross, who's the chairman over there, did a fantastic job kicking that off to the media today. So you'll be seeing some more of that kind of stuff. So we have stuff like that we're really inspired by and that are important that we're working on. So we'll just kind of see, but I'm just kind of taking a day at a time. And, I'm hoping we're not in a position where we have to, in the future, do layoffs or anything like that. Like I said, I would say foreseeable future, we're going to be, we're fine. Yeah. But we just don't know how bad this thing's going to get. And so my heart goes out to some of these really vulnerable businesses that really are by nature just vulnerable, like restaurants and movie theaters and things like that, and music venues. And that's been really like frustrating and sad to see, and kind of feel like you're helpless watching some of these businesses. But in terms of me, I'm not downplaying the seriousness of it all. Like I take it super serious. And so when I say I'm at peace with it, I'm not like enjoying the pain and suffering and all those things. Mm-hmm. And I don't take it at all lightly. But I've been able to find my little bit of solace in all that. And so I hope other people, and I'm talking to other people, I think other people have kind of come to that too. And they've been able to adjust to this new way of current life, like what we're doing right now. I think if this hadn't happened, we may not be doing this. Maybe we would, but maybe it'd have been later down the road. And instead we got to do this sooner. And so there's some things that there's some good things that are going to come out of this. And I really believe that with all the bad that happens, I think there's going to be a lot of good for sure that comes out of this. And I think maybe that's why I have peace with this. And it may not be even, there's already good happening now. The real big good impact stuff and people being fine, that may be a ways out. So I'm not holding false hope, but whatever that time frame is, it may be longer than we all hoped for. It may be sooner, but it's going to be good. And I really, truly believe that. Yeah. And that's the best mindset to have in these kind of situations, because you don't want to, I don't think, being a negative Nancy or kind of looking at this from a Debbie Downer kind of perspective, might as well have a good outlook about it. Try to do the best you can. I try to have as many conversations with positive people who also want that. But you're a fighter too, so you're a fighter. You're competitive. Like sometimes competitive people can take this on and be like, "Oh, this is a competition kind of thing." And so, but no, that's good. So talk about the venues that you enjoy playing in, man. As a musician, on the music side of things. Oh man, that's like bittersweet right now. So one of my very favorite venues, man, I want to say it was just as recent as, I think it was last year. I don't think it was this year. It was towards the end of last year in St. Louis, actually closed. It was called Beale on Broadway. And in a way it was kind of a dive, but in the best, most complimentary sense. And what I loved about that venue was it brought all kinds of people together. So you would look around and you would see a college group, and you would see like an elderly group, and they would all dance together.
Oh,
and you would see different ethnicities and people that were like broke and people that were like wealthy and all these different social and economic classes just melding together. And when we performed there, I just always felt like, I was like, man, this is just what it's supposed to be about, you know, just people enjoying music and having fun and dancing together and loving on each other. And you don't care. I mean, and it's funny. And I think what's funny about that is I feel like that's also how church is supposed to be. And so maybe that's what I like about it is like, this is kind of like what I feel like church is. And we're getting to do that here in a music venue.
Yeah.
And because we'd have people leaving, it was like, we would never like, there'd be shows where we'd never like mention God or anything. People would be like, that felt like a spiritual experience, you know, at that venue. I was like, it felt that way for us too. It's interesting. Like,
did you say that from the stage?
What?
I watched the clip of you playing, and I felt like you said something about like, this is almost like a spiritual experience or something like that.
I mean, I don't remember saying that, but I might have.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe you said it felt like going to church. I'd have to find it and see, but yeah, I feel like you said something like that in that clip that I watched, and so
I may have, because that's how I felt about, especially that venue. There's other places. So we had a venue in San Antonio called Luna, and it was the same kind of thing, but it was more classy. So it was like a classier kind of joint, but it was the same kind of deal where you would just be like, you would look over and you'd see, you know, a group of people at this table, and you'd see people at this table, because it was more seated. This other place was like a bar, and it was like, this other place is more formal in San Antonio. But the cool thing about, I think the common thing is everybody's there with an open mind. They're there because they do like a certain kind of music. So if it has a little more soul to it, and it has some of the gospels singing and things like that, they're going to be more drawn to it. So they already kind of knew what they were signing up for. We have the horns and stuff like that. So like so when I say open minded, not like, hey, we're a metal band showing up in a jazz venue, and it's like, guys, just be open minded. I don't mean like,
you went that far off.
Change your whole paradigm. I just mean they came in there like with a positive, expecting good, not like sitting back with their arms crossed, like, show me what you got. Yeah. Oklahoma City band, you know? It was just more like, all right, go. We're here. We're here for you. Let's see how this goes. Let's give us a chance. And so we had venue like that in Kansas City and stuff too. So there's just a couple things. But I think to me, it's like, when I think about a good venue, it's like there's so much to it that revolve around people. It's that you change the ownership and you change the type of music or whatever, and it's just a bunch of walls with stuff, you know. It really does like take somebody that has a vision. So like this venue in both these venues in San Antonio and in St. Louis, they had music like almost 7 nights a week in most cases, and they curated it with a certain type of genre, like in a lane. So like you're not going to have everything for everybody, and I think there's some beauty in that. Like they kind of know who they are, and if you're going to ask to play a show there and you don't fit that, they're going to politely say not a good fit. Or they may not even respond, but like they just know their audience, and they give them that. And so like, you know, and so anyway, it just takes people to do that. You know, you have to have the audience that knows where to go, and the owner knows, and the talent buyer know how to do it. And that's like guys like Graham, you know, he's successful at the Jones Assembly booking talent because he knows what music is Jones, it's going to fit the Jones, and what's not. You know, if he just booked anything and everything, it would completely lose its magic. Yeah. You know, so I don't know. I think it comes down to the vision of the talent buyer and the owner. So on venues that I like.
When venues are booking it, is it more so the artist reaching out, or do they reach out to the artist, or is there a combination of both?
It depends. So our deal, like, and it was good because we were actually like actively not booking shows and starting to like turn anything down. We had been in a spot the last couple of years where we weren't very actively reaching out. We were just, I guess, I don't know if negotiating is too hardcore of a word. We were just more like talking logistics and terms and things for opportunities that were coming in. So we would spend our time more like, hey, they want us to do this. Is this a good fit? And I think that's for us too, as a band. Like we always try to like do things that where we feel like I can kind of tell sometimes when somebody's talking, I'm like, like just politely, like, I know where this is going, and this is we're not going to be able to give you what you need and want, and it's not going to work. And that, sometimes people don't like hearing that, but I try to always like, here's a solution. What if you tried this? And usually they're like, oh, okay, that's what we wanted. I just didn't know. So sometimes we'll get asked to do stuff that just, it's just not going to fit the vibe they're trying to create or have the success they want. So, so I don't know. I'm giving you, I know that's not exactly what you asked, but so it's just kind of a mix. And so like, if we're going to set up a tour and like release a record, then we'll do a lot of proactive reach out.
Yeah.
But in general, I'm more of like, if it's not like promoting an album in a certain time period, we're just going to deal with what comes in. So we kind of do a mix of both.
Yeah. How many shows a year do you like to do? Do you have a goal or no?
No, I used to do about between 50 and 75.
Oh, man.
Common. It's gone down in the last couple of years, kind of intentionally. And like, I like about 50 shows in a year. It feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to fit that in. And I haven't been at that pace, man, in probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Probably 4 years.
Yeah.
2016, I think, is the last time we were hitting those kind of closer to those kind of numbers.
Is that just because of family and work, or?
I mean, I was doing all that and had the same situation I do now. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it just depends on album cycles and stuff. Mm-hmm. So for me, if I don't, like, I'm a little different. I'm probably more wired like an artist than I am a musician. So if I was wired like a musician, I'd be like, man, I got to play. Give me a gig.
Mm-hmm.
Where can I go play guitar? Mm-hmm. Give me a show. And I used to be more like that. Or I had times where I was kind of like that. Like, I had the artist side, but I also just wanted to go play in cover bands or whatever. But now I really am an artist. Like, I'm not interested in playing cover bands. I'm not interested in just staying busy. Like, I want to go be an artist.
Yeah.
So if I don't have an album that I'm really working on to like promote or put out there, then there's really just, it feels like busy work to just go tour, you know? Like, so that's kind of like frustrating, I think, to probably some of the band members and my music manager, but that's just, I can't help it. I really am more of a true, like, once I'm really honest with myself, like, if we want this to be an awesome show, let's piggyback it off of new music, and you're going to love the show.
Yeah.
You just throw a random show out there, and I'll do it, and the crowd may like it, but I'm not going to do that very much. I don't feel like it's inspired.
I never thought about an artist versus musician and how they approach it differently. Like, the way you just said, an artist probably is more like, whenever I get a new album out or something like that, where a musician is like my uncle, he plays the sax. He's trying to find a gig every night. Yeah. You know, he loves it. Yeah. And so he's ready to be on the road and traveling all the time, playing the same music or whatever. And so he's definitely a diehard musician, I would say, than anything else. Well, man, I sure appreciate you jumping on here, man, and taking time and let me just have a conversation with you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it, and like, man, honestly, I've admired you from a distance. I think the first time, I met you, you were greeting at an event, and just were the best greeter that they could have gotten, And I think I know you volunteer some of your time to do that at different events and things. So I really appreciate what you do for the community. It lifts people's spirits.
Yeah. How can they find you? Tell them where they can find you. Website, social media. What's the best ways?
The two places that I have are mattstansberry.com. and then wearenominee.com. So that's kind of the music side and the branding side. And then, of course, if you just look me up on social media, and the last name is Stansberry, like fruit.
Stansberry, not Stansberry. I messed that up. Stansberry,
that's
y'all.
Right.
Stansberry. So thank you again. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, go win.